Hey everybody, ImpracticallyNoah here with a quick YouTube short. Here is the Nintendo Switch 2. In my previous video of the overview of the user interface, in the settings you can adjust HDR. So HDR stands for High Dynamic Range. It's basically a calibration technique for highlights and shadows in black and white lighting and color spaces. Unfortunately, when I did the video, my Culinary Alliance Box Pro doesn't support HDR pass-through because it mostly is for like 1080p 60 recording. And also, my Ugreen branded HDMI switch box and HDMI splitter sadly didn't support the HDR pass-through. Even if I do my gameplay without the recording captures in my HDMI 3 input on my TCL Roku TV, it doesn't work. So I found out if I just plug in the Switch 2 directly to the HDMI 3 input, I get HDR 10 or HDR in general. So I'm going to try and troubleshoot my splitter and switch box and see where it goes. Alright guys, here's the next clip. So the Nintendo Switch 2 is connected back to my Ugreen HDMI switch box, which I disconnected its little short link cable that I made to the Ugreen splitter. So I just directly connected it to the third HDMI input on my TV, and I get HDR. Now let's test out the dip switches that you can see, the red little indentation on the splitter, to see if I can do HDR. Alright everyone, I found out the problem. So, in order to get HDR to function on your HDMI switches for your Nintendo Switch 2, or also your HDMI splitters, you have to connect the Nintendo Switch 2 directly to your TV's input of HDMI to adjust your HDMI calibration. Then, if you want to buy an HDMI switch to connect to an HDMI splitter, or buy those two things together, first, plug in your devices to your HDMI switch, plug your HDMI switch's output directly to the third HDMI or your HDMI input. Then, if you have a splitter, this device, plug in your output HDMI cables. Then you'll get HDR. But also, with the Culinary Alliance Box Pro, you'll get standard 1080p pass-through. And if you use the information button on your Culinary Alliance Box Pro remote, you see HDMI input will be 1080p 60, and recording will be 1080p 60 as well. What you need to do is go to your system settings of your Nintendo Switch 2, and then go into display settings, and set your TV resolution to automatic. So again, I'm on the Culinary Alliance Box Pro. So if I do 4K, you'll get 1080p pass-through only. Even if I go back, it will be 1080p 60, which you can see over there. 1080p 60 hertz. However, again, like I said before, if you just go into your HDMI switch setup or HDMI single pass-through or on cable, you'll get your HDR information. This is a tip if you're having troubles with HDMI switch boxes and splitters. Thank you for watching.